Look, normally we break down complex data or, emerging tech trends. But today we're dissecting something deeply, deeply unsettling. We're exploring the ghost in the stream and mapping out the anatomy of a literal digital nightmare. I mean, what actually happens when the barrier between the absolute darkest corners of the internet and the physical safety of your own living room just dissolves? We're going to trace the timeline of a live stream that completely defied logic, shattered reality, and left behind a terrifying mystery that, to this day, remains completely unexplained.
The digital footprint of this whole event begins exactly at 2:13 a.m. There was no title attached to this stream whatsoever, no description telling viewers what they were about to see, no username, nothing. It was just broadcasting on this almost abandoned, buried streaming site. And if you happened to click on it, all you saw was a dark room. Right in the center, sitting in front of the camera, was a motionless man. Now, at first glance, anyone would think it's just a weird internet prank, right? Like some edgy performance art, until viewers noticed something deeply horrifying. The man wasn't blinking. His chest wasn't rising. He wasn't breathing. 36. According to official police records retrieved way after the fact, the man sitting in that chair, being broadcast live across the internet, had already been dead for over 36 hours.
Okay, let's dive into this. To actually understand this impossible timeline, we have to look at how this came to light on March 12th. This hidden stream was stumbled upon by a college student from Ohio named Eric Malone. Eric is our primary witness here. He's the one who found this tiny, totally obscure broadcast, completely isolated out there in the digital void. And, like anyone else finding a bizarre video at 2 in the morning, Eric initially thought it was 100% fake. A looped video, maybe a really realistic mannequin, or just a super dedicated prankster. But Eric stayed on the page. He kept watching.
Let's just analyze the visual data Eric was taking in for a second. The stream's environment was incredibly mundane, which honestly just makes the footage feel so much more eerie and clinical. The room featured this peeling old wallpaper. The man sat on a completely basic wooden chair. The only light in the room was a single, dim, flickering lamp casting these long, harsh shadows. And perhaps most disturbingly, absolute silence. No static, no ambient room noise, no cars driving by outside. Just a dead, suffocating quiet.
And down in the corner of Eric's screen, the viewer count read exactly this: 1. Eric was the solitary witness to this. The stream was a closed loop between a dead room somewhere out there in the world and Eric's laptop right there in his Ohio apartment. He was visually and digitally isolated, just utterly alone with this unblinking man. But then, the metrics started behaving impossibly. The viewer count on Eric's screen glitched. It shifted from 1 to 2. Eric wasn't alone anymore, but almost immediately it fluctuated right back down to 1. And this is where the unease really starts to build, because nobody was typing in the chat, nobody else was logging into the site. Eric just watched the numbers jump. 1, 2, 1. Somehow, the stream itself was manipulating the numbers. It was literally changing its own data without any human input at all. This unbelievable tension holds for almost half an hour. Then, exactly 20 minutes into Eric's viewing session, a spatial anomaly happens in the background. Behind the motionless man sitting in that wooden chair, Eric spots a doorway back in the deep shadows. And for just a fraction of a second, something moved inside the frame of that door. Eric actually had the presence of mind to record the stream, scrubbing the clip back and replaying it over and over, just to be absolutely sure of what he was seeing hiding in that darkness. Which brings us to the anomaly itself. Look, this was no ordinary shadow. It appeared just behind the door frame, and its proportions were physically impossible. It was entirely too tall to be a human being. The shape's head was literally almost touching the top of the ceiling frame. And as Eric watched the recording loop, the impossibly tall shadow slowly, deliberately leaned forward out of the darkness, angling itself straight toward the camera.
Suddenly, the total silence of the stream is broken, not by a sound, but by the chat box. It activates entirely by itself. A single line of text appears on Eric's screen out of absolute nowhere. Don't look away. The suddenness of this threat, just sitting there glowing in the dark chat interface, caused Eric to freeze completely.
Desperate to understand what was actually happening, Eric immediately pulled up the viewer list. There were only 2 digital entities present. First, himself, Eric Malone. Second, a user named homelessboy_92. But when Eric frantically clicked on that second profile to see exactly who was sending him this message, the system returned an impossible response. Error. The account did not exist.
There was no second user, guys. That message had come from nowhere. Now we have to map out the rapid, absolutely terrifying escalation where the digital boundary completely shatters. Minute 1. On the silent stream, the dead man finally moves. Very slowly, his head tilts toward the screen. Crack. Another tilt. Crack. Minute 2. Eric mutes his laptop, completely panicking, but the cracking sound doesn't stop, because the sound isn't coming from his computer speakers anymore. It's echoing from somewhere behind the wall inside Eric's physical bedroom. Minute 3. As the cracking grows closer inside the actual walls of his apartment, Eric's cell phone suddenly begins to vibrate on his desk. The caller ID simply reads, "Unknown number."
Eric picks up the phone. He actually answers it. At first, there's only dead silence on the line. And then, a voice whispers directly into his ear. He sees you.
Eric drops the phone and immediately dials 911 in a state of absolute sheer terror. The official police report documents that officers arrived at his Ohio apartment exactly 14 minutes later. They swept the entire perimeter. They checked the walls. They checked everything. But they found absolutely nothing unusual. There was no physical intruder, no broken walls, just nothing out of the ordinary in the apartment whatsoever.
Except for one thing. One of the responding officers walked over to Eric's desk and noticed the laptop screen. The live stream was still actively running, still broadcasting that dark, peeling room. But the dead man was gone. The wooden chair was entirely empty.
At this point, this elevates from a creepy cyber incident to a major, full-scale investigation. Police issue warrants, they request the server records from that hidden streaming site, and they actually trace the IP address of the broadcast. And it doesn't lead to some server farm or a hacker's basement. It traces directly back to a real physical location, an abandoned, rotting house located just outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Detectives raid the property the very next morning. Deep inside the house, detectives entered a small room that perfectly matched the digital stream. The identical peeling wallpaper, the exact same wooden chair, the same flickering lamp. But the man wasn't in the chair. Sitting slumped in the corner of the room was a badly decomposed human body. The coroner confirmed the victim had been dead for at least 2 days, which means he was dead long before Eric ever logged on.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the technological impossibility the detectives face next. The physical camera setup, the one facing the empty chair, it was still active. The equipment was literally hot to the touch. The live stream was still actively recording the empty seat in that room and broadcasting it straight out to the dark web.
And when the cybercrimes unit pulled the real-time site logs from that live feed, they found something that defies all logical explanation. Even with the physical room totally secured by police and the actual victim lying dead in the corner, the digital logs showed that someone, some impossible viewer, was still watching the stream. The police forcibly shut the stream down right then and there. They cut the power, dismantled the camera, the whole shebang. 3 hours later, that entire hidden streaming website vanished from the internet, completely wiped. As for our witness, Eric Malone, after giving his official statement and posting a few frantic screenshots online, he completely deleted his accounts. He has never spoken publicly about that night ever again.
But this explainer doesn't end with a closed case, because this digital nightmare absolutely refused to stay dead. Weeks later, whispers began circulating on other deep web hidden forums. Users reported seeing the exact same live stream just blink back into existence. It was the exact same room, the same peeling wallpaper, the same flickering light. But the man sitting motionless in that wooden chair was different. It was a brand new victim. So, the crucial point is the lore that has now completely infected these dark web spaces. Those who've actually researched this reappearing stream all share one chilling warning. They claim that the stream operates like a digital mirror, like a trap just waiting for an observer. They say that if you log on and if you watch the unblinking man in the chair long enough, the person on screen slowly starts looking exactly like you.
We've traced the data, we've read the police reports, and we've analyzed the logs. We know the stream is still out there, hiding in the dark, waiting for an audience of one. Which leaves us with a final question to consider as we conclude our analysis of this digital nightmare. Would you watch the stream if it appeared on your screen tonight?